All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of Proof of Vision. Today's call, our first one, in fact, after the holiday, so happy holidays, everybody, was with Marko, the co-founder of Jumper Exchange. If you're not familiar with Jumper, this team goes way, way back in crypto to LI.FI or LI.FI, however you want to pronounce it. Which was like the first chain abstraction protocol, at least that I have seen in the space. So obviously deep experience with like cross-chain execution and kind of solving that problem for users. And then Marko talks about how they kind of built Jumper, as a side project at first, right? But it ended up gaining so much traction that it kind of required, its own team, its own product. I think they're separate companies as well. And it was just a really, really good holistic conversation with Marko about, the problems that Jumper solves. They just come out with their earn product. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But it's one of the more robust earn products that I've seen as well in terms of like how it steers users to certain opportunities. It actually analyzes your wallet history to kind of analyze what your risk tolerance is for yield opportunities in crypto, which is really cool. And different features that they're launching in the future and that they've kind of integrated in the recent past here. So really good conversation with Marko. If you're looking for an app that can do everything for you, I would definitely pay attention to Jumper because it sounds like they are building, a fat app, for the masses here. So, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Obviously, if you do, hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next episode of Proof of Vision. Take care. All right. Welcome everybody back to another episode of Proof of Vision. It's been a while. We have been on a holiday hiatus. I hope everybody out there had a fantastic holiday. I know it's never a dull world in the crypto sphere, so it was kind of hard to turn off myself. But hopefully you guys are all rested. We've got a great conversation for you today. We've got Marko, the co-founder of Jumper, on the call. Marko, how are we doing, sir?
Well, amazing. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. How was your holiday? Were you able to unplug a little bit or?
Oh, yes. It's almost 2 weeks of pure family time, so enjoyed it greatly. Even got some snow, made it even better. So
Yep.
pretty happy.
Gotta love that weather. We went skiing. We got some snow too, so we ended up going skiing over the
Nice.
holiday, which I try to do like once a year, and every year as I get older, man, it's just harder and harder to get back up again.
I know. I know. Same.
Yeah, so that's good. Yeah, it's definitely good to unplug for a while, but now we're back at it. There's a lot going on with Jumper. Definitely want to get into that. You guys are doing some really, really interesting things. But before we do that, I always like to start off kind of getting into your background. What were you doing before crypto? How'd you get into crypto? And then ultimately, like, what led to this journey of ultimately building Jumper? Take us through, maybe that maturation phase for yourself.
Yeah. I guess like my my earlier career can be described as jack of all trades, master of none. Two failed startups. In 10 years, probably the 6, 7 different businesses. Landed in IT sales and marketing right about a time 2017 when I started looking into crypto a lot more. And it was just like an interest. It was something at the school, prices were going up. I wanted to learn about it. I put some money in, lost that money, and it was kind of a chip on the shoulder, like, hey, I thought I was smart, and I did a good research. And that's kind of just made me stick. And so with time, I just started writing more, doing project reviews and stuff like that. And I think like 2020, it became really annoying to go to work. I was really looking forward to come back home on my screens and like check stuff out. And it became like I guess like a natural signal to transition fully into Web3. And I was lucky enough to land at LI.FI. I joined LI.FI about 4 or 5 months after it was founded as part of the marketing team. Then after that, moved to head of marketing. And Jumper basically became one of the projects we incubated within the marketing team. So we've decided to build a flagship app on top of the LI.FI SDK because back then Well, no one believed in multi-chain future. 99% of volume and activity was centered around mainnet, and it was extremely difficult to convey that the multi-chain future is kind of coming. And so one of the ways we wanted to do that is to build a consumer app that can be a showcase to the BD team, to respective clients, but also kind of saturate the need or solve the fragmentation problem, if you will, that existed back then for the end users.
Yeah, it's awesome to. This is kind of like a full circle moment for me. I remember when LI.FI was kind of coming out, right? Um, and I can't remember what token I was in, but it was fascinating to me because at the time, I'm not a whale, right? So the fact that I could stake into, I think it was Klima DAO, I could stake into Klima, cross chain from like one of the L2s that were out at the time. Like that was just like mind blowing for me. I was like, this is awesome, to save me so much, so I can farm my my Ponzi token now. This is great. So yeah, it's kind of a full circle moment actually talking to you today about this because that was like the one of the moments actually that triggered me to get into Web3 full time was oh,
Okay.
now I can see like how this fragmented world of crypto, I guess, like all comes together. So yeah, no, it's awesome to hear kind of the origin of Jumper, kind of jumping off of that same platform.
Yeah, that's actually an amazing use case. At the same time, we did two. This was basically the first kind of cross-chain deposit in the industry, and then right at the same time, Russia Ukraine happened, and we've basically built the same piece of tech for donations into Ukrainian wallets. If you remember, Ukrainian government had this like crypto donations as well, where we basically allowed users to donate any token from any chain into assets that the Ukrainian government needed at the beginning of the war.
Alchemix Finance empowers you to spend and save at the same time with a self-repaying, interest-free, non-liquidatable loan. Deposit your assets and access your future yield today. Available on Mainnet, Arbitrum, and Optimism. Head to alchemix.fi to get started. Yep,
Pretty nice.
It really does highlight just kind of like like I said, like kind of like the full value proposition of crypto, right? It puts it all together. Chain abstraction, and this entire, like, I would call it almost like a movement, right? Because you said at the beginning, like not a lot of people kind of believed in that. And I feel like Li.Fi kind of sparked that, and now obviously look, we've got, layer zero and we've got, all of these kind of, these projects, they're kind of building the infrastructure out, to kind of realize this vision. But I think like you guys saw, a need to kind of showcase it, right? And that's where Jumper kind of came in. And now it's kind of like standing on its own, right? Jumper is, it's got a ton of flow, coming through it. You guys just launched your Earn product. So maybe talk about like, what made you guys decide like, okay, hey, listen, this project itself is strong enough to like stand on its own, and this needs to be like the core focus of an entire team just building this out. What were some of the actions you guys are seeing or the metrics you guys are tracking in terms of the decision making there?
And that actually came really fast, to be honest. So Jumper officially launched in March 2023. By summer 2023, we already were starting hiring specifically for Jumper. The main reason is the launch itself and data and volume after launch, like post launch, kind of was way above what we initially kind of marked and expected. And it became just really crystal clear that users still have a habit of using specific UIs for specific purposes, and that a consumer app like Jumper does solve a problem for a lot of users in the industry. You kind of have to put it in the context, and the context is that at that time is where the thesis of the multi-chain future kind of was starting to come to fruition, like Arbitrum live, Optimism live, a few other chains live, and it kind of became glaringly obvious that for users as well that hey, there's so many different opportunities and so many different chains. Obviously, there needs to be plumbing in a way that allows me to go through these opportunities pretty fast.
Yep. No, it makes sense, and your model really is a bit unique in the fact that like you're aggregating multiple solutions, right? So walk me through that. Obviously, I already mentioned it kind of at the beginning, but there's Li-Fi, there's Layer Zero, there's some of these other competitors, that are kind of sprouting up. But what made you guys kind of decide, okay, hey, listen, we should aggregate, all of these solutions instead of maybe like focus firing on one single solution? For the
So
execution.
yeah, so I think the medal for that, if you will, has to be given to Max and Philip, the founders of LI.FI. They're serial entrepreneurs that had a couple of companies before this, and all of them were some sort of aggregation. The last one was aggregation in biomedicine, and so there's like this origin story. They ended up at a hackathon of Youth Global, met Arjun Bhuptani, the founder of Connext, one of the first bridges back then, and kind of got introduced to the industry and what they weren't in the industry before. And what they've heard is like, hey, here's this like mess. New chains are going to exist. The bridges are, bad in a way, right? From a user experience perspective. This was at a time where you as a user had to actually do research, like, the connectivity of the chain, like through what is the chain even connected to another chain? Like, how can I get there? Usually you just had to use a centralized exchange. You need a KYC, an account for, like there's like so many friction points throughout this process. And they've had experience in aggregating APIs and aggregating systems in general. And so it was kind of like a logical, well, obviously someone has to do this, like, because the UX is so horrible that it makes no sense that someone will use this, right? And this is kind of how it started. Since we've came a long way. I can't really say that everything is like full on aggregation anymore. Like LI.FI has acquired Catalyst, which is basically like content network last year. And so there are new models of how value flows getting added into the stack that Jumper just inherits. So Jumper is built fully on top of LI.FI SDK. And as LI.FI updates or upgrades its system, adds new liquidity sources, we basically inherit it. And we built the product around that for the users.
Gotcha. No, it makes sense. Makes sense. And I guess what it's kind of been like from a metric standpoint, right? Since you guys have built this, right? I mean, I think you guys have done like over 8 billion, in DEX aggregator volume, 18 billion, coming through, bridges and bridge aggregators, as a result of like your flow. So these are non-trivial numbers, obviously,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's obvious that this product has product market fit, within the industry. Um, but that's primarily focused on like kind of the swap flow, I would say, right?
Yeah.
You guys are now launching more features to kind of, I guess, capture more of the user journey, I would call it. After they're kind of making these moves, you want to capture more value for that user. So obviously the earn product is like the newest one, the kind of the crown jewel that's come out.
Right.
But was that kind of your train of thought? Like, hey, listen, there's an opportunity for us to kind of build this almost like everything app. Eventually, as we add more and more products to the suite.
It's a combination of multiple things. Like we're a very data driven company in general, and so we really, for a long time, we look at what are users doing on chain, what are they doing before and after they use Jumper, where's the liquidity flowing, where's the value as well in the end, right? At parallel to that, you've kind of said it in your previous, I guess, question as well, as if you look at 2022 or 2026, the interrupt space is just different fully, right? And 2022 is like, what do you mean interrupt? Like, who cares, right? To 2026, where I would say interrupt is solved. If not solved, it's 99.8% there to be solved. And so what that also means is that because it's solved at an infra level, it allows you to build better products and better flows and more intuitive flows. What that means for us is swapping and bridging, you almost like it kind of moved from a product to a feature almost, right? So the interrupt space from a swapping and bridging perspective, at least, is super commoditized, and it's increasingly hard to find value there in a way. It's kind of like almost expected. It just has to work. At the same time, we have about 170,000 distinct wallets that use Jumper per month. And very, very high percentage of these wallets also, of course, participate in DeFi. And we're talking about like hundreds of millions of dollars that are being deposited left and right, while at the same time, there's really no um, kind of unified interface for a cross-chain native user, right? Where I can see all of my positions, I can manage them. I have opportunities surfaced based on, XYZ parameters chosen by the user. The amount of fragmentation that was solved, if you will, on the liquidity side, because we now have RFQs, mint and burn in assets, we have intent protocols, we have ample ways of how we move liquidity. The fragmentation continues on the DeFi side. There's more and more chains, there's more and more protocols. These protocols have V2 pools, V3 pools, V4 pools. There's different types of strategies. There's curators, there's good curators, there's better, there's so much of it that it's a massive cognitive load on the user to be able to make sense all of that. And so if I would have to put it in a more concise word, we're building a smart money app. We're building an app that allows users to like not have that cognitive load, but still have access to the opportunities in a very simple to execute manner.
Gotcha. No, it makes sense. And really, like with Earn, there's a lot to dive into specifically with this, right? My mind always goes first and foremost to like curating these opportunities that the users see, right? Walk us through that process a little bit, because that is non-trivial at all, right? That is a complex process, because obviously you don't want to show. I don't think you want to showcase your users anything that maybe like is not safe, right? There's probably some level of curation. So maybe walk us through that process. Like, how did you guys think about like this initial list of Earn opportunities, on Jumper today, and how are you guys like filtering out and kind of curating opportunities to add in the future?
Yeah. So we actually we don't curate from that perspective. So the point number one is from an integration. So there's like two levels you can think of it. So what is available on Jumper Earn, and then another level is what is surfaced to the user, to a specific user, right? So on the level of what is integrated into Jumper Earn, we're not opinionated at all. So the data points are where are our users depositing money? That's it. List, high volume, low volume, that's it. This gets filtered with third-party providers on the risk side, meaning, there's a lot of providers that give different types of risk data, meaning assets, vaults, protocols, etc. And so we look at those as well for any potential red flags. So if these third-party providers have kind of marked the system as icky, then of course we will choose not to put it on Jumper Earn. Otherwise, it goes there. The second level is basically individualized to a user, right? So if you hold mostly stablecoins or interact mostly with stablecoins, that implies a certain risk appetite and implies a certain kind of conglomerate of protocols that would be interesting to you, right? And so like you can just like go more granular into the chain, the types of protocols and stuff like that in terms of like what you actually show to the user. So what we're trying to solve on the UX layer is we're, as I said, no curation, not opinionated at all. We believe all protocols that are bona fide, that don't, scam or do stupid stuff, deserve to have a place in a system like Jumper Earn. But that doesn't mean that every user will off the bat see that protocol if they kind of misalign on risk appetite versus what this protocol offers. And so I think there is this mechanics where the user itself, by their behavior, on-chain behavior, and assets that they're holding, protocols that they're depositing in, is kind of influencing what protocols are going to be prominent on their UI. There's still another option you can go to, and it's all markets, where you just like, do DeFi Llama-like categorization and find something else. But we strongly believe that to remove the cognitive load, ideally user gets like 3 to 5 opportunities, right? And ideally these opportunities are very close to what they would kind of be triggered to participate in.
Gotcha. Yeah. And just to bring it up on screen, just because I do find this actually really cool. And this might be the first one I've seen that actually does this in terms of like Earn products. So basically, it's almost like X, right? Like this For You tab right here is kind of analyzing my wallet. kind of looking at like my risk appetite like based on my transaction history, and then it's going to kind of like handpick for me the opportunities that are available on Earn that might meet that profile, which is really cool. I really like that model. And then you said as far as like the any level of like curation that actually goes into it, right? You guys are leaning into third parties to kind
Yeah,
of like risk rate, these
correct.
assets. And if anything's flagged, then okay, it gets
Correct.
removed.
Correct.
Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I think it ultimately it culminates in a pretty smooth, user experience, because that's the one thing I do. I always, when I think about the Earn products that are starting to come out today based on like on-chain, opportunities, I always think like there's two ways to go about it. There's, hey, show the user everything and let them choose. But then obviously the user could be overwhelmed by like, too many opportunities, too much on the menu, and they freeze and they don't do anything. Or you can kind of like handpick a few, right, and kind of give them that. Or there's the even further extreme where it's just like, no, like our Earn product is only based on Aave, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
or whatever.
I think I would kind of put it in. It's kind of a twisted diagram where all this is kind of the limited amount of users, maybe pros, maybe like who really know exactly what they want and what they're looking for, right?
Yeah.
And then as you kind of like go further on the spectrum towards like the normie level, there's less of that, right? Like there's like only few information that, quote unquote,
Yeah.
my dad would need to like put his money to work. And this is, risk levels, how much am I making in a month and 6 months in a year? Is my money immediately accessible, for example? And look, there's no lockup or whatever. And most importantly, that it's self-custodial, right? Like
Yeah.
we never like hold users' funds. We never do any of that. Like you can arguably have a bit smoother UX if you actually do that. Like if you have smart account wallets and stuff like that. But we're purposefully building this in a way where we don't do that at all, and we will get to completely one-click experience for everything you see on Jumper Earn.
That's awesome. My my head always goes when I think about crypto Earn products. I always think about Binance, first and foremost, just because it's been around for forever. But
Yeah.
the way that they do it is obviously very, in my opinion, it's very campaign focused, right? Like projects are going to them, using token incentives to kind of add a boost for their Earn users on Binance. How are you guys thinking about this? Do you guys think that that's something that you want to maybe look at in the future as far as maybe focusing more on like projects that want to run campaigns on Jumper Earn? Um, like I think about it like you usually see like as soon as the campaign ends, obviously people are just like very mercenary. They're pulling their capital and it goes to the next campaign. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
a campaign flow more so than maybe
So
like an Earn product truly.
So the jumper earn will always be completely credibly neutral. There's no way to pay to play. I mean, you can get your pool, your vault up top if you basically subsidize the yield on it, and by API and other measures, it goes up. There's no other way to manipulate anything. This is purely data, right?
Yeah.
What we had before, and also what gave us a lot of data to go into this direction is the missions and the loyalty pass. And so the missions with the loyalty pass kind of give us this ability to do very specific missions, very specific campaigns for the users, be it ecosystem campaigns. So for example, last summer we did the first Superfest with Optimism. It
Yep.
was a 2 month long campaign. They put, I think, $1.8 million in OP tokens as reward. We've managed to bring $200 million of TVL to Frax base mode and OP, for example, in 2 months. So you can do these, but you're also super correct where a lot of it is mercenary capital, right? The cost of switching is non-existent in our industry, and so it's very easy to hop from kind of a place to place. That's why we're kind of like every 3 to 6 months on a campaigning, if you're mission questing side, whatever you want to call it, there's a structural shift in how they tend to be organized, right? Like if you talk about 2 years ago, it was, hey, we want to run a campaign, and it was a lot of times vanity. And it was foundations trying to get numbers until the end of quarter and stuff like that. Versus today, in order to organize a successful campaign, it actually has to do things, meaning we're fixing slippage between like some native assets or high volume assets. We're deploying, like we need to get more liquidity into a specific protocol so the DeFi ecosystem can actually work so you can loop properly. So it really becomes way more specific in solving the problem of the user themselves. And then secondly, we do have examples in our industry where the properly organized campaign, and brave one, can really be fruitful, and that's an Aave merit program. So they had this dedicated some Aave separately to basically vampire attack Morpho deposits. And as far as like, I don't know what the numbers are today or if that's live anymore, but I remember it was something like 1,400 wallets did in total 500 million of clawback volume, right? So it also kind of goes to show that the more specific you are in either targeting specific users or doing very, very detailed and specific things, the more successful you are. And Jumper sits kind of in the middle of this because we have 3.5 years experience of organizing these things. And so we help protocols and ecosystems to solve those problems to them, while at the same time, they have an activation of users through Jumper. Jumper users are, in general, extremely high intent and also native in 7, 8, 9 chains at least on average. So they're a really good target group for these protocols and ecosystems to target. And then we kind of went, okay, what do you need as a product to get there? And so when you see a notification card, for example, in Jumper, most of them are connected to your action, meaning it recognizes that you're going to a specific chain or that you have a specific asset you're swapping or bridging into, and only then it gives you a specific opportunity, for example, that is tied to that asset or that destination chain. So it kind of helps you target that high intent, plus I already have the ability to like participate in this, right?
Yeah, that kind of user experience to me is optimal, right? Like I can't think of many. I mean, there are some now. I think apps are getting a lot smarter. Developers are kind of having time to like integrate these bells and whistles, but just those little things, right, really do add up to a great user experience. At the end of the day, like if I'm bridging to Plasma and Plasma has this campaign going on with Aave, then yeah, I would love for my my exchange, that I'm trading on or I'm going in to earn on, to flag that for me, right, and put that
Yes.
in my face.
Yes.
So it's really thoughtful, I guess, the way you guys have thought about like the way that the app actually interacts with the user, and it's actually analyzing kind of like your movement, right, or your history to give you the right opportunity. And I really like that, personally. So
Thank you.
definitely tap on the back there, when it comes to the way that you guys have structured that. Um, so then really, the next part of it, right, is what you've done on the portfolio side.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this feature, a little bit here. What would you say makes it differentiated from something like, I don't know, DBank or Zapper, some of the other dashboards out there? What are you guys trying to kind of get out of this feature?
So this is the V0 of the portfolio, but the main difference will basically be action. So DBank or Zerion or Zapper are mostly just read only. You can
Yeah.
check the information, but you can't really act upon it. The idea behind the portfolio is to give you a full DeFi cockpit. Everything that is possible to do, meaning I want to withdraw, deposit, basic functions. I want to maybe claim and compound. Okay, that's a bit better, right? Or I want to rebalance position. So for example, imagine if you go to your portfolio, you have under DeFi protocols, you have a position, and you get a little notification saying, hey, why don't you move your deposit to Plasma, for example? You will get X% more API on the same assets you have deposited, for example. And you just do that in one click, right? Or you can set up, I want to claim once per week and want my claim to be sold into USDC on Base because that's my base chain, and this is where I collect my stables. So the idea in general is to empower users to really take control of their wallets, of their deposits, and have that from one spot on 62 chains basically.
Gotcha. Yeah, again, kind of going back to, I guess this idea of like an everything app. You could just see like the building blocks, right? Um, and really, to me, and feel free to answer this or not, but like I wonder in the future if there's room, right? You guys have so much distribution, right? I think you guys have like 1 billion in flow a month, and and so that distribution is obviously king in this industry. But even adding on like features like, okay, if you want to take leverage, here's options to take leverage, across chain, on different venues. So like those kinds of things are things that I hope to see in the future for Jumper, because for me, I'm always about efficiency, and I don't want to jump around to like, if I don't have to jump around to a perp dex, and I can just do it through my aggregator, or through my kind of my home app. And those are things that I want to do. But how are you guys thinking about that, or is that something you can speak to?
Yeah, I mean, generally that's the idea, right? Like when you say everything app, it is, if you look at 2025, it's relevant if you're looking, especially from interop perspective. Like interop as a niche is extremely interesting because, I mean, maybe blowing smoke up my own ass, but the cross-chain part is the most difficult problem to solve. And interop teams who've solved that are best positioned to basically continue building and abstracting away, right? It's vastly different problem of doing an action on same chain versus doing that same action across like 2 or 3 or 5 chains, right? And so what started happening is it kind of seems that everybody's going towards the same direction. As users' habits are changing, the mobile use is growing. This I use one UI for a specific thing is also changing. Like we're kind of, I would say, opening up the fat app thesis in a way. And we a lot of protocols are building towards the same future with different design choices how to get there, I would say. And so our design choice is to give users what they want and need now, what they're doing, and then incrementally add things that we see are future proof or future oriented, right? Um, and so in 2 years or 3 years, the success of Jumper will be when, Revolut has a board meeting and mentions Jumper as one of their scariest competitors. That would be personal goal, and I guess the company goal as well. But we are going to the future where, yes, it's a fat app, right? It replaces most of the things you need. It gives you on-ramping and off-ramping, and you have all the opportunities served easily, and it's all one click in a beautifully presented manner, right?
Yeah, love that. Just from like a philosophical perspective, for me, like I would much rather have a kind of a crypto native, crypto origin type project build that for the world than I would maybe like some of the more traditional fintechs. Personally, I would like to see that win.
Yeah.
Um, but kind of on that same topic, right? You were talking about like, okay, we're trying to think into the future, like what are features that users are going to want. One of the things you guys announced back in August was your partnership with Travel, right? Which is like Jumper Travel, I think is the
Yeah.
product name, right? Talk about that a little bit, and kind of what the thought process was, and where is the magic being made here for Jumper? Like what's the value you see offering, the ability to be able to book across the globe, and then kind of the in travel piece. What did you see within travel that maybe is a bit different than maybe some of the other like bookings
I
platforms
mean,
out
and like that's the shortest part, I guess. Like, and Travel is a very, very good partner. They've helped us a lot in like launching it. They have a lot of experience in it, and so it felt like a really good partner we can work with on the long term. In general, the thought process still is how do we expand the surface of crypto native users? And what that means is that if someone wants to be a crypto native user, that doesn't just mean like I'm, well versed in moving around chains or whatnot. That means that I spend, earn in crypto, right? And so we were looking for opportunities. How do we expand the surface on which our users can actually spend their assets as well? They're making or earning and stuff like that. And so this is kind of where this idea the city I came. Second of all, it's also an opportunity for us to give specific benefits to Jumper Pass holders. So Jumper Pass is the oldest running loyalty system in the industry. So it's, I think, launched in August 2023, and it will live as long as Jumper lives. It's intended as an airplane mile like loyalty system where users collect points and get benefits on a monthly basis. And these benefits really, are differing. Like a few months ago or 2-3 months ago, we've given away 17,000 SafePal hardware wallets, Nansen subscriptions, VPN subscriptions for free, discounts on travel and perks on and travel, for example. And so the idea behind all of that is we need to give users, always try to give users something extra when they're using the product. Like you don't use Jumper to have access to Jumper travel, right?
Yep.
But with all the benefits around, it just makes it more, easier to decide that you're going to use Jumper as your go-to solution when you need to like either move assets or deploy those assets somewhere.
This episode is brought to you by Pendle. Pendle is a leading protocol in the DeFi yield sector, operating as a permissionless yield trading protocol, facilitating the tokenization and splitting of any yield-bearing assets in DeFi. This allows users to speculate on future yield or earn a fixed rate on their assets. Learn more at pendle.finance. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes perfect sense. How about, I kind of want to shift this into institutions a little bit. I want to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, Jumper has great traction. You have tons of users. A lot of them are on-chain natives, but keep hearing about institutions coming into crypto. It's been a meme now for a long time. But I think we're actually starting to see it, right? And obviously the regulation in the US is starting to propel that a little bit more. How do you view like Jumper as maybe serving these institutional clients? And do you view that as a focus of yours, a large focus, a small focus? How would you categorize that? And how are you guys going after that?
I would say a small focus. Partially because a lot of on the institutional side, LI.FI already covers.
Cool. Well, makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about what the future looks like and what you're most excited about for the future of Jumper. We talked about a lot. But like you personally, like whether it's the portfolio kind of V2 and iterations, what would you say you're most excited about for Jumper coming up in the next quarter or so?
Definitely portfolio and earn iterations. This has been a long time coming. We've built this for most of 2025. Everyone from engineering to non-engineering roles were like itching for it to get out. And now when it's out, we already have 2.5 million deposits in the first few days going through Jumper Earn, and a plethora of features that are just going to make it a killer product. And I can't be more excited than to share it with people that actually kind of grew up in the industry. And I know they're like DeFi savvy and DeFi professionals to finally start using Jumper. That is my kind of highlight of 2026 on the professional side for sure.
Looking forward to it, man. Love the product you guys have built. Looking forward to kind of talking down the road and seeing how the iterations have come along. Thanks everybody for tuning in. It's been a fantastic conversation, Marko. Anybody that is not familiar with the show, you can look in the show notes and we'll link you out to, where you can find Jumper, where you can find Marko, where you can figure out
Thank
more.
you for having me.
And obviously, follow Aaliyah Research as well. We're going to be coming out with more long form